Hi, I'm Emilia. I'm the VP of Marketing at Userpilot, and I wanted to tell you how we generated $655,000 in pipeline in 3 months from our new ABM strategy with just $57,000 in ad spend on LinkedIn. We started working on the strategy in July 2024 after our efforts to convert a list of accounts from our sales addressable market just with cold outbound didn't quite work out, and I think it's worked pretty well. We had 4 people approximately working on this strategy full-time: myself, our new head of ABM, our performance/growth manager, our demand gen manager, and also we had our graphic and web designer help out a lot with, of course, creating the assets and the landing pages for the ABM strategy. As I mentioned, we spent $57,000 on LinkedIn ads in total, and that was literally most of the spend. Otherwise, it's just the in-house costs of salary. We used HubSpot marketing as our tool for this, so paying around $2,000, $1,800 per month. I think everyone who has marketing operations specialist, which I realize I forgot to mention in terms of the team, that is a very, very important member of the ABM team, can implement the strategy. It does take some time to implement because of the complexity of the operation and the reporting. But if we could do it, I think you can do it too. And I'm keen to share the details with you today.
If that resonates with you, listen along. Otherwise, honestly, don't. Check out our other episodes instead. You are listening to TLDR, the B2B SaaS growth podcast brought to you by Spear Growth. Every episode is like a case study of a tactic, which means if you're listening to this on a Friday, by Monday you can actually start implementing it. I'm your host, Ishan, and I run an ads and SEO agency for B2B SaaS companies like yourselves. Now, let's get into the episode.
Hey Emilia, thank you so much for doing this. I have been seeing your posts. A lot of your posts, I think the first one that I saw was something that went viral. And then I remember scrolling through your profile and seeing you've created, like, the kind of posts you do are really in-depth. They're true stories of stuff that you've done. And I think that was when we reached out to you, that was the first thing that we saw, that, hey, we have to get Emilia on. You talk about the real things you've done, you go in depth, and that's exactly what we do on this podcast. I know the topic, and I'm really excited to just sort of get into the actual weeds of everything that you did. Thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you for having me.
For anyone that hasn't heard about you, can you just quickly give a small introduction about yourself?
Yeah, sure. So I'm the VP of Marketing at Userpilot, which is a product growth platform for product analytics, user engagement, and feedback. I've been with Userpilot pretty much from the very beginning. So for the past 5 years, built the marketing team from the ground up. And previously, we've been focused on organic SEO mostly, almost 100% inbound. And that was going great for several years until, the product has grown and developed so much that, it turned into a more robust, more complex platform. And the sales is not that transactional anymore. It's not, like a product that you just go on the website, read a blog or two, and just decide to buy. Like at this point, the platform is quite complex, and because it is so robust, because the pricing is also higher, people actually need more time to think about it. So it is becoming more sales-led in the enterprise and mid-market segment. We've been going up market. The ACV has been increasing over time. So, like SEO and the inbound organic content play for just this reason has been diminishing returns. We haven't been able to grow as fast with just organic SEO as we used to. And, like the internal reasons are part of the reason, but of course there's also the like global kind of economic and just technological changes that happened, and that as well I think affected the performance of our SEO a lot. So even if we maintain the same positions in the SERPs, there are fewer people that search for the same search terms that are driving conversions, and more people search in AI tools, ChatGPT, Perplexity, and as a result, like these tools do not always, mention us in the generated answers the way we could mention our solution in the context of the keyword that our target audience is searching for. So we started looking for alternatives to address these two issues, and that's how we arrived at ABM as well. So kind of that's the long story cut short.
Love that. Okay, so before we get into the actual ads, you tried outbound before that. Can you just
Yeah.
walk us through what was the setup, what did that look like, and why do you think it didn't work as well?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so actually we tried outbound several times under different leadership, and it never quite worked in like a scalable, predictable way for us. So most recently we tried outbound again in 2024. From the beginning of the year, we hired 5 full-time SDRs, and we were using Apollo and Me Alfred to push basically sequences of emails, messages, and then there was also the cold calling channel on top of it. We were using the Apollo dialer, then at some point we were using nukes as well, so an auto dialer, parallel dialer really, to increase the efficiency. And we did manage to book like 80 something demos in 6 months, and we did manage to convert some of this pipeline into, it was around like $500,000 in pipeline into closed won, but it was nowhere close to the quota that these 5 SDRs would need to hit for this to make sense. So we decided to downsize this operation and to essentially go back to the drawing board and look into ABM as a way of warming up the leads and facilitating the outreach by means of generating first party intent signals. So I wanted to know, because our tool, as I mentioned, is complicated. It caters to a lot of different use cases, but it also caters to a lot of different personas. So when we did a win-loss analysis, we do it like roughly every 6 months to basically check, keep tabs on the market, and what kind of deals we're winning with, what kind of companies, what is the use case of the deals we're winning, what is the use case of the deals we're losing, who are the personas we're winning and losing. Like, it's always so fragmented that it's hard to talk about like one single ISP, right? Like the majority of our deals, enterprise deals especially, come from the product persona, but then within the product function release, not the persona, there are like several different personas, right? So you have product managers, but then you have also product growth managers, you have product marketers. So our target audience is really, really diverse. So it's not really possible for us to use these canned, third-party intent signals, because they are often not granular enough for us to be able to make any use of them. So like tools like ABM tools that are using intent signals from Bombora, for instance, and are not going to be good enough for us because they don't even have the topics that we would need to be looking at. There often is pretty niche, so there often isn't even enough volume to create these custom topics, which are then super expensive. These tools are super expensive. So I'm like, I want to control this, and I want to be able to gauge and harvest that intent from engagement with our content, either on our website or through our ads. And this is kind of exactly what we did. And yeah, happy to say it seems to be working. It's still pretty early days because we've only been running 2 campaigns for the past 3 months so far. But as I mentioned at the beginning, they already generated 655,000 in pipeline in 3 months. So that's a lot more than, the cold outbound operation generated in 6 months. And we only used 57,000 in ad spend. So compared to the tool stack and the SDR salaries over the course of 6 months, this has been also a lot more efficient.
Of course, love that. So let's dive into what you said about the tech stack and what didn't work. But instead of talking about why it doesn't work, can you just walk us through what was the setup that you used finally? And I'll be able to maybe connect why wouldn't other tools be able to do that? And what was the setup that you used here?
Yeah, sure. So it's been that has been the challenging part, and that probably took the most time for us to find the right solution. So I spent the first few months looking for the right ABM solution, and I didn't like what I was seeing. So probably the closest contender we were considering was Demandbase. We were considering solutions that are not dedicated for ABM, but that just provide the intel into who's visiting your website, like Hockey Stack and revenue attribution and analytics solutions. So Hockey Stack and Dream Data. I really loved Dream Data, but the problem was it only had a one-sided integration with HubSpot, which is our CRM. So we weren't able to push data from Dream Data back into HubSpot without implementing a data warehouse and a reverse ETL. And I don't have the engineering resources to do that. So unfortunately, we had to scrap that. Eventually, I wasn't also a fan of display advertising and private advertising networks and using reverse IP lookups to identify website visitors and identify intent in that way, because I've seen it. We actually did something really funny later, which I will get into in a second, that proved to me that these tools are super inaccurate. And I also read a case study that the most accurate of these tools, Clearbit, only has 25% success rate in recognizing website visitors. There are lots of reasons for that, right? People working remotely and working from home. So their IP is not being attributed to the company IP, or just the fact that a lot of people are not accepting cookies and are using ad blockers.
Yeah,
it all prevents these tools from working as accurately as we could. So that's why we decided to basically place our biggest bet on LinkedIn.
Okay.
And to use the company level attribution from LinkedIn ads to essentially gauge which companies are interested and in what they're interested. So at first we found a solution that did that eventually, because most of the traditional ABM tools, they don't really do that. I think one of the reasons is that they want to push people to use their private advertising networks and spend the budget with them rather than with LinkedIn. So they didn't have that. I eventually found a tool called Fibbler that was pushing the data from HubSpot And we liked it. It was pushing the quantitative data, but then like approaching their CEO, hey Adam, like, why don't you push the qualitative data as well? So like which ad campaigns, because they actually had it, which ad campaigns the companies are engaging with, and wasn't interested in doing that, or there were some challenges. So we started developing our own API solution, calling it, maybe we'll make it available in the next couple of months. But we built our own tool essentially for this, for pushing the qualitative ad engagements. So which campaigns, which company is engaging with in like the last, it's based on weekly basis, because that's when, the API data becomes more reliable. And that's another thing that LinkedIn is obfuscating data. So you can't get engagement or clicks data from accounts that clicked fewer than 3 times, or that clicked from fewer than 3 members. So that is a bit of a challenge in any period of time. But yeah, anyway, we are most interested in the accounts that clicked at least 5 times, because this is how we are marking accounts that are interested. But we're also, as I mentioned, because we're targeting different personas in these companies. In our first campaign, we were targeting, I think, 8 personas. So we were looking at product managers, but then product marketing managers. We were looking at marketers. We were looking at customer success people, engineers, and the CXOs, mostly CEOs, CDOs. So we were pushing different messaging to them. So for the BDRs to make meaningful connections and to reach out to the accounts in the right way, they needed to know what messaging this particular account was interested in. Not only how many times they clicked, but also what they clicked on. That's why, we spent some time basically building our own API solution. And at this point, we're using it to push the quantitative data, so impressions, engagements, and clicks, and that's what we use for account scoring. But then we also push the qualitative data, so which campaigns the account clicked on, to push the intent back into HubSpot, and that intent is then pushed into the sales dashboard for the BDRs to use to, reach out to the right prospects. Because based on which campaigns, like this particular account engaged with, they know also most likely which persona is interested and in what. So that helps with prospecting, and that helps with personalizing the messaging as well. As I mentioned,
I'll just, as I was listening to all of this, right, I'll show you a tool that we built in-house, which is exactly what you built. Like the entire thing that you just mentioned right now.
Oh, you did as well.
We built the exact same thing.
That's so funny. Yeah.
The exact challenges that you've sort of mentioned right now, they're the same things you've done. We don't sell the tool, it's like for ourselves to use for our clients. I think how did you solve this is the topic of the campaign? Like, did you just use campaign names to do that, or how did you?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, instead of campaign names, because, each campaign can only have one inventory type in it. So either single image ads or video or thought leader ads. So we're using campaign groups for that intent, right? And then within campaign groups, there are different campaigns with one type of inventory in each, because we are using different ad formats. And yeah, that way with campaign group names, we know the intent. So we actually built a database in Notion for each ABM campaign. Basically each ad, has an asset owner assigned to it. And there are a lot of different properties that indicate like the intent, the ad format. And then we have a calculated property, which is essentially a formula that concatenates the names of these properties, and it creates like the short code for the campaign name and campaign group name, which essentially contains all the information about this campaign. So who was the target persona? What was the intent? So what was the content of the ads, right? Because in our case, the intent can be product adoption or user onboarding or maybe product analytics, right? Because as I mentioned, again, we are a platform. So if we don't know what this particular account is looking for, they probably won't react to our outbound outreach. Yeah. And also, like, how can we do follow-up campaigns, ads, if we don't know what this particular account is interested in? So all this is encoded in the campaign group name, and yeah.
I absolutely love that. I'm going to tell you we run the exact same playbook.
That's
And I'll
so
tell you
cool.
the message that we send. The biggest pushback we hear whenever we run this is that, hey, I don't know who to reach out to. Especially if the moment you go to enterprise, I have no idea how to solve that. Please tell me, because I can then tell my clients to do the same. But the message that I've always, that seems to work the best for us, maybe you can try this, is, hey, Emilia, saw that a couple of your team members were engaging with our ads about X. Do they just enjoy the content, or is this something you'd really want to solve for? It's just as short for that, or is, like, why, whatever we do, something you're looking to solve for right now? We've tried this direct approach, we've tried indirect approaches, we've tried like other things, but this message has outperformed everything else across. So what do you use as a message, and who do you send it to?
So actually, pretty much exactly the same. And we only are starting the campaigns because, as I mentioned, we've been running this for like 3 months, and we had a new BDR team lead. So again, we were moving out of Apollo into HubSpot, so like redoing the whole operation with sequences from HubSpot. Like HubSpot has actually launched a couple of new tools like the prospecting. They're still in beta, but they look really quite promising. So, there were some reshuffles at the end of the year, but now like we have pretty much the same messaging. Like, hey, I saw that a couple of you people from your company have been engaging in our content about, and because we know which content they engaged in, we can mention it like literally with a custom field, which we can extract from the campaign group name. So yeah, but I'm glad to hear that this is working, because we are literally launching the campaigns next week, and we'll see how it goes. I had the same idea.
I'll show you this. I know we are in the middle of a podcast, but after this call, I'll send you a screenshot of one of the dashboards we make. It's really cool just to show to, like, in our case, to the heads of marketing like yourself, but then in your case, maybe to someone else, like a single metric to measure everything. I'll send that to you after that.
What is the single metric then?
It's basically, we call it mindshare. Not trying to derail the episode, but the way we sort of do it is we just like you've mentioned, there's a threshold. We set a threshold too. Anyone who passes the threshold, we said, okay, it's reasonable to assume that if they've engaged X number of times with our ads, they know about us. And we know that there's a TAM list. That's how there's a total list that we've uploaded on LinkedIn. That's how we're running the ads. We don't use native LinkedIn targeting. So we know the total number of companies out there. Any accounts that engage are from that, like, let's say a list of 10,000 companies are from a list of that 10K. So if let's say the number of engaged, quote unquote, engaged accounts goes up to, let's say 3,000, we can say, okay, we have now 30% mind share.
Okay.
That's it's
cool. I got it. Yeah.
When you were explaining everything, every detail, every technical detail you went to, I'm like, we did the exact same thing and we faced the exact same problem. So if I would build a tool, I'll just buy yours, honestly. It's not worth the hassle.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are struggling with it. And then, the other problem that we were facing is reporting. So we also spent a lot of time just building out the dashboards on HubSpot. Because, you get the weekly update on the property from, is it Your Tools, an ABM, Fibbler, whatever. But you push this to HubSpot, and then what do? It overrides the previous data every week, right? You can look at like the monthly or quarterly, but you actually need to be looking at the data from the start of your ABM campaign to the moment when you're reporting on them. It doesn't make sense to report like more frequently than on weekly basis because of that data obfuscation from LinkedIn. So at the end of the week, what do you do with this new number, right? You need to create a calculated property on HubSpot that will keep adding these weekly numbers from the start of the ABM campaign to the moment when you're reporting. And based on that, like we use it as an account score. So basically we created ultimately lists on HubSpot, dynamic lists. And the companies that belong to the particular ABM campaign, because they are on the list. So again, like your Mindshare, it's exactly the same thing, right? We have a list of accounts that are assigned to a specific ABM campaign. So they get a property in ABM campaign, where ABM campaign name is, say, Product Drive 2024. And every company that is on this list and that has had more than 5 clicks on the ads in this campaign in the period of time from when the campaign started is going to move to the interested stage of the campaign. And at this stage, this is where the BDRs start reaching out, right? And we know that, this company clicked so and so many times on this specific campaign group, right?
Yeah.
With this
so I just the last thing on the tool you built, right? So I think yours is better than the one we have because we only have one directional data. So we can build all the dashboard, we build everything outside. LinkedIn hasn't accepted our request to give us API access to push it back, to like pull it in yet. So we don't really have that access. So I think I really like the setup that you have. I haven't pushed it in HubSpot back yet, which is.
That gives you a lot of, I think it gives a lot of opportunity to push it back into HubSpot because then when you update these properties and you create the calculated properties and then you use HubSpot lists to basically like score the accounts and move them to a different like subset list, then you can use these lists and workflows to enroll these accounts in specific sequences automatically, right? So what we do, actually, we don't enroll them automatically because the sales team doesn't like that. I mean, we have a subset of accounts where we do enroll automatically because I'm testing it, and the subset that is just done manually by the BDRs, actually, because we changed a little bit the way we target the accounts. So we were using lists, like specific lists. So we did prospecting even before creating the campaign, and then we would just upload these lists to LinkedIn, and the match rates are a bit lower, but it's also that it's a lot more expensive because you need a prospecting tool, and with a lot of accounts as it is in one-to-many programmatic advertising ABM campaigns, it just becomes super expensive, both in terms of prospecting and in terms of marketing contacts on HubSpot, which we're using to push the lists to LinkedIn from HubSpot. We just now push the list of accounts and we create the audiences on LinkedIn, right? With specific functions, specific seniority, and that's basically, how we target. We don't know exactly whom we target, so then the BDRs still need to prospect, but they know actually whom to target based on, again, the campaign group engagements.
I'll just slightly. We have like 8 minutes. I just realized we just geeked. Completely on me, geeked out on what you said. I'll just rush through a lot of the other questions around.
Let's finish. Let's do this. Yeah.
Yes. Right. So let's do that. Right. So on the messaging bit, what do you say? Because there's so many use cases, there's so many personas. Like, how do you? Sure, there's different stuff across everything, but like broadly, is it all related to the pain point, or or the pain points, or what do you talk about?
Yeah, so again, because we do the account scoring, right, there are like 4 different stages of the ad campaigns. So, in fact, we have campaign groups that are segmented by intent and persona, but we also have campaign groups that are segmented by the stage in the funnel. So the first layer of ads is the awareness ads, and they talk about the pain points mostly. They are supposed to be highly engaging, funny, resonate with the prospect, like just get them, roped in and reinforce the pain point, and just like, very briefly mention us as the solution. But they don't go very deeply into the solution yet, because first we want to build that kind of
Yes. The way I
engagement.
say it is make
Yeah.
them prioritize the problem, not just that. That's all you're doing. You're making them prioritize the problem that you solve.
Yeah, because if people don't have the problem, they won't engage in ads about the solution. So we first are trying to scoop out the audience that has the problem in the first place,
Yes. Agreed.
right?
Perfect.
So we talk about the problem in the first layer of ads when when the accounts are engaging, right? They move to the second stage, so the interested and engaged stage, and this is where we start talking about the solution. And then when they keep engaging in these ads and they actually move to the consideration stage, this is like literally an opt-in, so they have to either sign up for the trial or book demo. This is where we move them to the consideration. Actually, that's when we move them to selecting. But before, when they're in the interested stage, we're showing them the consideration stage ads. So we're talking about the solution, but also showing some case studies, right? Like how other customers of Userpilot did something and what they achieved. This reinforces the need to book a demo or to sign up for a trial, because it shows them that, oh wow, like we are missing out. Yeah, we know that we have the problem, we know that there is a solution, and now we know what results the solution can give us. So basically, these ads are kind of aligned with the stage of awareness and the stage of the buying journey that the account is in.
Love that. Okay, so we have the messaging down, we have the account list down, we have exactly the funnel. So I think, can you just walk us through when do people? So irrespective of the stage of the journey, the BDR will reach out if the account crosses the engagement threshold, or is that not the case?
Yeah, that is the case. That is the case. So if the account reaches the interest engage stage, we aim to reach out to all of them. And again, prioritize the personas that we know are most likely to have engaged in this case because of the campaign group they engaged in.
Perfect. So I'll just ask you a couple of numbers, and you might not remember all of them. So whatever you do, just let me know. Whatever you don't, that's
Sure.
fine. How big is your account list? Because it seems like it's huge. Like, how big is the account list, and how big are the accounts? Like, how many people are there? Not the accounts, but how many people are in the department that you run ads to?
Yeah, so with the account list, again, we had to make certain assumptions as to conversion rates from each stage to the next one, because we were starting from scratch. So we actually used Kyle Poyer's ABX framework. He published an article a few months ago on Growth Unhinged with like
When you
the
shared it, I read
benchmarks.
the article.
Yeah, the ABM benchmarks. So we assume these benchmarks for just moving from identified, so basically the list, to aware, and from aware to interested, and from interested to considering. Later on, we just took the qualification rate and the close won rate that the sales team has had for, like it's been consistent for a while from inbound. And based on that, we worked our way backwards from the revenue goal. So so let's say the revenue goal is, as an example, to generate $3 million, right? You know that the close rate is, let's say, 25%. So to generate $3 million, you need 12 million in pipeline, right? But then you know the qualification rate, say, is, let's say 50%, okay? So 12 million in pipeline, you need 24 million in like pre-pipeline, so we call them pre-ops. In other words, these are demos for us, right? Someone books the demo, there is a discovery call, they get qualified. When they get qualified and the deal is open, it's pipeline. So let's say you need 24 million in these pre-ops. How many pre-ops do you need to generate 24 million in pre-pipeline? So again, what is your ACV? Let's assume the ACV is 100,000, right? So you need 240 pre-ops to generate your revenue target. Okay, with that, you can already work your way backwards using these conversion benchmarks that Kyle Poyer mentioned in his post. So, I think it was like, we've identified where we didn't really care because awareness is something that is based on impressions. So, okay, they may be aware, but they may still not have the need, may not be in the market. So what we were mostly focusing on is the conversion rates from aware to interested and engaged. That was, I think, 32%. And then from interested, engaged to considering, so the demo, so that's 18%. So we just take the number of the demos that we need to generate 240, divide them by 18%. I'm not that good at math, so I won't do the math like with this 240 divided by 0.18, but then you get the number, right? And then you divide it again by the benchmark you need to move to, aware. Okay, so like, how many aware accounts you need to basically, and then you can again do that again for the total number of accounts that you need to include in this ABM campaign if everything goes well to achieve your revenue goals. So that's what we did, and we basically then monitor the conversion rates. We know that our ABM campaigns last 90 days. Okay, so we know each month how many accounts we need to move from one stage to another to stay on track, right? And we're also monitoring the ACV because, we have a target ACV. I mentioned, say, 100,000 as an example. But is the ACV really as good? You need to monitor that. And you need to keep monitoring the number of deals open and basically times the ACV and the pipeline. And are you on track with the pipeline? Another metric we are using, we kind of developed internally for this, is the ad spend to pipeline generated. So, yeah, we basically take the pipeline divided by the ad spend and we get a metric. And we are using this metric to stay on track because the revenue operations team gave us a certain, budget and a certain revenue target. So we know what is the target pipeline to ad spend. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. So just to going back to my earlier question, by the way, I really, really appreciate the entire breakdown of how you do the projections. I like how simple it is. It's not overly complicated. It's still it's still a straight line, right? And it's not,
We tried to complicate it. We did initially, but then we realized we don't have the data to execute this complex account scoring and projections.
I can imagine. That's why it's very impressive how simple it is, right? That must have been really hard. Coming back to the question, how many accounts were there in your target account list? Because the number of stages you've divided it in, and also how many people are there in each company that can even contribute has to be massive to divide it so many times. Roughly.
Not really. It all depends. If it has to be massive, it depends on your ACV and depends on your revenue goal. So what do you want to achieve?
Do you know
Um,
like how big was the audience in terms of companies, number of people
yeah.
in a company, or like just the audience size on LinkedIn? Either of those?
Yeah. So in total, the first campaign we targeted 1,417 accounts, as
Oh,
far as
that's
I
it.
remember. And the second campaign we targeted just over 1,000, I think 1,048, something like
Oh
that.
wow. And how many
So
people are in each company that you can actually target? Like
around
roughly
15.
15. Got it. Okay. So you still were managed to make like a 10,000 account, 10,000 plus list of people,
Yeah.
um, which is okay, interesting. So I think that's one core consideration. A lot of times, what happens with our clients is that when you try this, we cannot get to the numbers. Right? Like the number of audience list becomes like, hey, there's only 2,000 people in the entire segment, so you cannot really go ahead with that. I think for anyone listening, that's a key consideration. Um,
Yeah, LinkedIn won't even run the ads if you have fewer than 300
yes,
people in your audience. So that becomes a problem. That has been a problem for us.
yes,
You know, as you said, dividing at each stage. So obviously, at the top of the funnel, you can put as many people as you want to. But when you hit, say, the interested stage and you already divided it by like
yes,
32% and 18%, it turns out that you have like a handful of accounts if everything goes well. Then
yes.
it's a problem because, you know, if at any point we had fewer accounts, we had to like merge the personas. We couldn't run at the consideration or at the interested stage. We couldn't run campaigns for a different
Yeah.
intent. So that's
I'll
why
give
it's
you a quick
important.
hack.
Yeah.
You can add people who aren't ever active on LinkedIn into your audience. It could literally be like doctors, and like your audience list gets bigger, but then like they never log in. So you'll see a few doctors, like salespeople, will be a little confused, but then it's still going to be like if you ever have to. Like merging accounts merging audience is definitely better, but then if you had to, you could do this. Just FYI, it's a fun little hack. But
Yeah. I mean, fair enough. Fair enough.
okay, perfect. Going back to so we have the team, right? You mentioned there were a couple of folks in the TLDR. Is there anything about the team that you think we should dig deeper into?
Yeah, I have a marketing operations person that's just like really good with tools. That was a lifesaver because, you know, like most of the, I would say, VM campaign success is the RevOps. It's
Yeah.
like, you know, it's what has taken, and I regret it that it is like that. And, you know, if I'm to like continue building this tool that we created, that would be the first thing I would address, like how difficult it is to attribute the data and to make them actionable. Because as I mentioned, after pushing the qualitative and quantitative data, you need to create calculated properties. Then based on all these different properties in your CRM, you need to create dashboards. Just sitting and creating the dashboards alone to know, okay, how many accounts moved from one stage to another in a particular, you know, week or month, from which campaign, which assets are the most effective. It's such a nuisance, and it takes so much work, and every company is reinventing the wheel on this. So, you know, that is
Yeah.
something that, you know,
If you
should be
build it,
addressed.
us and all of our customers that would be your first customers for sure.
Thank you,
But
thank you. Yeah, it's work in progress, but, you know, honestly, I couldn't believe how long and how much work it was for us to get this up and running. So we just know what's going on, and we still don't quite know what's going on because we don't have like all the properties yet. And for instance, the conversions, you probably are more familiar with this than I am, and you know how much campaign manager and LinkedIn campaign manager sucks, right? That you can't even filter by a specific conversion event. You need to like scroll and look at like, oh, what was the conversion here? It's just, yeah, it's not great. The
yeah,
experience is
yeah,
not
yeah, yeah.
great. Yeah.
Perfect. So, was there any question I should have asked that I didn't ask? And thank you so much for staying beyond the allocated time.
Yeah, no. I would probably just say which assets you're using and which were most effective?
Yeah, please.
I think
Yes.
that's a good question. So yeah, we found that video has been performing the best for us, and no
Sorry,
surprises
thought
here.
leadership and video combined, or just video?
Just video.
Just video.
Yeah. I mean, thought leadership, they seem to be working very well. But there are some catches in that like thought leadership ads treat everything that happens on the post. So if someone clicks more, if someone likes the post, it is treated as a click, right? So there are a lot of clicks that are not clicks through to the website. So again, you need to tease these out, right? And make sure that people are not just reading and liking the post, but they are actually taking the action that you want them to. So yeah, I would say video has performed the best so far, and single image ads. Thought leadership ads we're still gonna use for bringing that awareness and like reinforcing the pain, but they're not like the best for conversions. What is also something that is interesting, we created a lookalike website, so we could control who is landing on each of these pages. And basically we're using the reverse IP lookup from Clearbit with Breeze Intelligence that is available in HubSpot Marketing to do that. But as I mentioned at the beginning, the accuracy has been very, very low. So we have a separate instance for this domain, and we see how many people landed on it from the ads, and it goes into hundreds. And Breeze Intelligence has only been able to identify one company, for instance. And we are sure, because a lot of these companies landed on this page and booked a demo from this page even, that it wasn't true. So this also told me that, hey, reverse IP lookup is not the best way of attributing, company visits to specific pages. And that's why we ditched that part of account scoring, because we would never be able to get enough data to score the accounts based on their engagements with specific landing pages. Not this way. The same with HubSpot. I was really hoping when we upgraded HubSpot Marketing that we would be able to at least attribute ad conversions based on form fields. And that is also not happening. I mean, there is such a huge data loss on these tools. Is what turned out, of course, after we upgraded, is that in order for this conversion to be attributed to a specific ad, the conversion needs to happen within the same session, within 30 minutes of clicking on the ad, and the person needs to have accepted the cookies policy on the website, and they can't have an ad blocker on. So, we already have 4 criteria, and guess what? Most people don't just directly click on the ads and book a demo immediately within 30 minutes. They still do some other stuff, maybe they come back later, but then this is not attributed anymore on HubSpot. So there are big limitations to attribution for ABM, and that, of course, is annoying. But there is also the question of data privacy, etc., etc. So, yeah, something we have to live with.
Yes, love that. The last question that I'll ask is, if you had to give a quick elevator pitch for Userpilot, like that'll be amazing. What would that look like?
So Userpilot is really something that takes away a lot of these headaches that I've been mentioning here of building out data integrations, dashboard, working so much on the operations that you don't have the time to work on content, but more from the product marketing, also to an extent marketing teams. It's a tool that allows you to learn what your users are doing with your product, and what is leading to conversions, where are your users getting stuck and getting frustrated and dropping off, which features are the most helpful, which features are not that helpful, and then use this data, both quantitative from product analytics and qualitative from session recordings, to build better in-app experiences, to build better products, but also to build better onboarding, to build better lifecycle marketing campaigns inside your product, to also understand how your users feel about your product by asking them questions with in-app surveys. And it's really this one-stop shop for product marketing, customer success teams to understand their users and improve their experience.
Absolutely love that. If people had to follow you, is LinkedIn the place to look to follow you?
Yeah, that's the best place to find me.
Love that. Again, thank you so much for doing this, Amelia. This was great. I love episodes where I get to geek out, and this was every little thing, all the technical nuances. I've never met a marketing leader that goes into the amount of depth that you just went into, which
Thank
is
you.
yeah,
Thank you so
I really
much.
appreciate that. Yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate it too. Sorry, I was a bit stressed at the beginning because, I wasn't entirely sure what we're going to be talking about. But yeah, it turned out well. It turned out I didn't forget everything after Christmas. So that was, yeah, but thank you so much, Shan.
Thank you for listening to the TLDR podcast. In case you're wondering, Spear Growth is a marketing agency. We do ads and SEO for B2B SaaS companies like yourselves. You can check us out at speargrowth.com. That is SPEARGROWTH.com. Every episode, just like this one, starts with a quick summary of what we're going to discuss. Pick the next episode to watch based on what you can implement right now. And once you start seeing results, we'd really appreciate it if you dropped us a note at podcast@speargrowth.com.